Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I will discuss a case of infant of diabetic mother along with the related MCQs. Now you are called to see a neonate in newborn nursery who is about 2 hours old. Pregnancy was complicated by maternal gestational diabetes. Delivery was induced at 36-week gestation due to difficulty managing the gestational diabetes. Infant was delivered by cesarean section for failure to descend, although the obstetrician had to enlarge the initial incision to remove the infant due to the size. Reassuring fetal heart tracing were documented throughout labor and delivery. Light meconium was noted in the amniotic fluid and Epker score were 8 and 9. He began to cry vigorously as he was dried but calmed down in the mother arms and was permitted to stay there and breastfeed as vital signs remained stable. Now, initial measurements placed the growth at large for gestational age. Since admission to nursery, the infant respiratory rate has climbed steadily and is now at 70 breaths per minute. When you arrive, you note nasal flaring, grunting with each breath, and chest wall retractions. There is no cyanosis at present. You ask the nursing staff to administer oxygen via hood to keep the saturation between 88 and 92%. And order a stat portable chest radiograph, arterial blood gases, complete blood count, differential and cultures. Now question number 1. Which of the following condition is least likely to be the source of the infant respiratory distress? A. Neonatal pneumonia. B. Choanal atresia. C. Transient tachypnea of the newborn. D. Respiratory distress syndrome. E. Meconium aspiration syndrome. And the correct answer is B, that is choanal atresia. Factors in this infant history which argue against this diagnosis include the ability to successfully breastfeed and stable vital signs noted when he was calm in his mother's arm. Infants with choanal atresia become apneic or drop their oxygen saturation when they attempt to feed, depending on whether the obstruction is total or partial. Moreover, since newborns are obligate nose breathers, signs of distress improve when they are crying, which forces them to breathe through their mouth. Any of the remaining conditions could cause this infant distress. Respiratory distress syndrome is most common in infants who are less than 34 weeks gestation, but can occur in more advanced pregnancies. However, this child is large for gestational age, which is likely due to maternal diabetes, but would also rule out incorrectly advanced staging of the pregnancy. Meconium aspiration syndrome is also possible, although unlikely in this case, given that only light meconium was present and the fetal heart tracing were reassuring. Neonatal pneumonia does not typically present this early, but if prolonged rupture of membrane or chorioamnionitis has gone unrecognized, early infection is possible. Question number 2. Which of the following chest radiograph findings would be most consistent with the diagnosis of meconium aspiration syndrome? A. Prominent perihilar streaking, increased interstitial markings, and fluid in the interlobar fissures. B. Air bronchogram superimposed on the widespread atelectasis, creating a ground glass appearance. C. Areas of atelectasis, areas of coarse irregular densities, and distinct areas of overinflation. D. Symmetric patchy consolidation with uni or bilateral effusions. E. Consolidation of one lobe or two contagious lobe only. And the correct answer is C. Since meconium in the lungs cause airway plugging, usually a combination of distinct areas of atelectasis and overinflation are appreciated. Findings listed in answer B above create the ground glass appearance, which is characteristic of respiratory distress syndrome. Now, perihilar streaking with fluid in the interlobar fissure suggests that retained fetal lung fluid, which is interfering with the oxygenation. Now, the findings in answer D are often associated with bacterial pneumonia, but it is uncommon for neonate to have the appearance of true isolated lobar consolidation unless there is an anatomic abnormality. Now, it is important to note, however, the results of radiograph should be interpreted with caution, as any of the first 4 answers above may be present with more than one condition, and quality of portable film is also variable. Now question number 3. The infant is able to maintain oxygen saturation within normal range when the hood environment is at 40% oxygen and the respiratory rate begins to decline. Now the ratio of immature to mature forms of WBC is low and the total WBC count is normal for the age. Now, ampicillin and gentamicin are administered while awaiting results of the blood culture. By 48 hours of age, the infant has been weaned to room air and is breastfeeding. Blood cultures are negative. Now, this clinical picture is most consistent with which of the following? A. Nosocomial respiratory syncytial virus infection. B. Transient tachypnea of the newborn. C. Hyaline membrane disease. D. Apnea of the prematurity. E. Meconium aspiration syndrome. And the correct answer is B, that is transient tachypnea of the newborn or TTN. It is also termed retained fetal lung liquid syndrome. Now, it is a relatively common condition in term newborns. Most infants need only minimal support such as oxygen via hood to maintain the saturations. Others may require nasal, continuous positive airway pressure, and in rare cases further intervention is necessary. But this condition virtually always resolves within first 48 to 72 hours of life as the retained fluid is reabsorbed. This infant is at increased risk for TTN due to the maternal history of gestational diabetes, elective cesarean section without a trial at labor, and large for gestational age. Both increase the risk for TTN as well. Now, nosocomial respiratory syncytial virus infection can be problematic in an infant, but it is unlikely in this newborn, which still has high maternal antibody load based on his age in days. Hyaline membrane disease or respiratory distress syndrome takes longer to resolve without intervention and usually require more aggressive supportive measures such as mechanical ventilation unless treated with surfactant. Now, apnea implies periodic cessation of breathing. Moreover, this child is not premature. While mild MAS could present and resolve in this manner, the preterm and perinatal history, along with the mildness of the illness and the rapid resolution, make TTN more likely. Now, question number 4. Baby is discharged from the hospital and follows up at your clinic for regular health maintenance visits. Just before 2-month visit, mother calls about a large hard bump she has noticed along the middle of the bone at the top of the chest on the right side. According to her, child is moving both arms the same amount and with the same range of motion. Now, which of the following is the most likely cause of abnormality prompting the mother concern? A. Clavicular fracture at birth. B. Up palsy. C. Developmental shoulder dysplasia. D. Metatarsus adductus. E. Potter syndrome. And the correct answer is A, that is clavicular fracture at birth. Now, palpation of the clavicle in this condition may produce a crepitus, which is a cracking sensation under the fingertips. Now, clavicular fractures are more common in large infants born vaginally with associated traumas such as shoulder dystocia. This baby was not born vaginally, but the incision had been widened to allow the removal of the child. This suggests that the obstetrician was unable to maneuver the child out initially due to the size. The bump the mother is describing is most likely a callus formed from the healing bone. Now, Erb's palsy is a neurological deficiency of the upper extremity resulting from trauma to the nerve roots of C5 and C6 during delivery. The affected patient holds the arm in an abnormal position with extension at the elbow, internal rotation and fixed pronation of the forearm. The arm is held close to the body on the involved side. However, the grasp reflex is preserved in these infants. Now, developmental shoulder dysplasia is not a described condition in newborns. However, developmental hip dysplasia is, but this child abnormality does not involve the hip. Metatarsus adductus is a medial curving isolated to the forefoot, and Potter syndrome is a constellation of findings, that is compression deformity of the face and limb, prone belly and pulmonary hypoplasia, which result from intrauterine bilateral renal agenesis. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel.